forget about the funnel. I think about that we consistently put out high quality content, whether that's top funnel, low funnel, whatever. It just needs to be of supreme quality every single time. And then we need to stay constantly top of mind with these customers.
Before we jump into today's episode, I'd like to give a quick shout out to the sponsor for this episode, Ahrefs. Ahrefs provides you with an all-in-one SEO toolset that does everything from rank tracking to backlink analysis, keyword research, and technical audits. The best part, you can now use Ahrefs Webmaster Tools for free to identify and prioritize optimization opportunities for your website, see all the keywords that your web pages are ranking for, take a close look at the websites that link back to and refer you in their content, and analyze other websites to find out what drives their rankings. Visit ahrefs.com/AWT and sign up for free. And now, back to today's episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the SaaS SEO Show. I'm your host, George Cassiodis, and today I'm very happy to be joined by Steffen Hedebrandt. Steffen is a co-founder and CMO of Dreamdata, a B2B attribution platform that helps connect marketing activities to revenue. He's an expert in measuring a content strategy's impact on revenue pipeline. And I think we've been chasing you for quite a while, Steffen. I don't know since when we have this chat open about bringing you on board, but it's good to finally have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you so much, George. It's pleased to hear that I've been in demand. I'm happy to be here, and
You sure are.
Content and SEO was one of my first loves in marketing. So definitely a topic I like to talk about.
That's great. Before we talk about all these very interesting things, and some of the things that you do at Dreamdata, can you please share a few things about you and your background and what has brought you to where you are today?
Yeah, I can. So finished Copenhagen Business School in 2010. So it's been some years now. Ever since then, I've always been working in B2B companies. I've always been working in marketing and growth related roles. I've always been working in companies that are like 100% digital or like mainly digital. So like the things I'm going to say here today is also being very biased about that's my background. So obviously there's a lot of stuff that I don't know about, but I know a lot about how to scaling startups and like doing marketing for these kind of companies and using content as one of the key drivers of this.
So you are co-founder and CMO at Dreamdata. Yeah. For people who have never heard of Dreamdata before, can you please share what Dreamdata is and who gets the most value out of the platform and the product?
Yeah, happy to, George. So at the core of what we do, we basically help B2B companies understand how they produce pipeline and revenue. The way we do that is that we create call it a go-to-market data platform, where we basically take anything that touches our customer's journey and extract it out of the data silos that it lives within today and get it into Dreamdata and build one unified customer journey. Typical examples is that you have some information in your CRM system. There's other information in the marketing automation system. Then there's information in the CS tool. There's a lot of stuff going on your website. You buy ads, you pay for intent data. You have all these things that are part of B2B customer journeys every day. And all of these things we extract out of the silos that they live within to provide our customers with a timeline of what they know about every account. And that we can look at the micro perspective, which is the one account. Where did they come from? What have they done? Have they taken part of webinars? Have they had sales meetings, etc.? But you can also summarize that into different kinds of reports about, RevOps metrics. How long does it take to get a customers? Are we strong in certain segments? Which reps wins most deals? But you can also break it into reports about when you've bought 10,000 clicks from Google search ads, how much revenue or pipeline did that yield afterwards? Or it can be looking at which pieces of content is it that influence revenue the most or start most customer journeys. So essentially, you can take anything that has a digital reflection and compare it to whether it actually generated a pipeline or revenue. And then I think the purpose of this is then to know what works, what doesn't work. And my the very low practical thing is that you like apply kind of a normal distribution or a bell curve thinking to this. So identifying the stuff that you do that obviously don't work, and moving that kind of resource into the things that you deterministically can see that it works.
That's all very interesting, and I mean, many of the things that you shared are things that I want to discuss today. But before we do that, do you have a kind of a use case or like a case study you can share from one of your customers that by using Dreamdata they managed to achieve X?
Yeah. If you go to our website, dreamdata.io/customers, you'll see a lot of these. But you can say the ultimate outcome of what we do is that we help people significantly lower their customer acquisition costs because they spend their time and money much more effectively. An example like this is a company called Capmo, which we have a case with, where the VP marketing says that he estimates that they have lowered their customer acquisition cost with 50% because of this radical transparency that they now have. And maybe if I can just explain you why there's such an opportunity to become more effective in B2B. It's because all the tools that you people who are listening, the B2B marketers, all the tools that you're using, they're wired to understand behaviors of individuals. They're not wired to understand the behavior of a team or like a buying committee. And, a simple example like that is that, say you've written a great SEO article, pulls in tons of traffic every month. Then that is probably the first touch of a lot of accounts. But then this account persists of 3, 4, 5 people more. And then when this contract is going to be signed 6 months from when you pulled in the first visit to the SEO article, nobody's going to be able to see that article you wrote like consistently keeps pulling in traffic that becomes revenue 6 months later. And that is kind of the bridge that we gap for our customers. We take all the individuals and make part of one account timeline. And that is what enables us to say, what is the very first thing we know about this account all the way through until the account is won.
That's all very impressive. And I mean, we do a lot of webinars, we do a lot of in-person events, and one common theme, one common question I get after many of these events or during, if it's a webinar, is regarding attribution, right? Because I can tell you, we work with very big companies and even smaller ones. I mean, the fact that a company is big, I mean, just creates the assumption that they will have some boxes checked, but it's like a common thing. Most people struggle when it comes to attribution, right? And I was really looking forward to this discussion for that exact reason, because I know that most companies struggle when it comes to attribution. Before we dive deeper into things, though, I have a very basic question for you, which is that I'm in this industry for a while now, and I see that ROI seems to be a taboo for content marketers. Do you see the same thing? And if yes, why do you think that is?
Is that for content specifically or for all marketing?
I would say specifically for content marketing, because SEO is something that you could like more easily, let's say, connect to revenue and return on investment. Whereas when it comes to content, the example you gave just now was a very like vivid one. You have a piece of content that like many people start their journey from there, but maybe it is like the sales cycle is 6, 9, 12 months long, right? How can you attribute value to this piece of content? And so I see that many content marketers become very defensive when it comes to ROI. And I just wanted to know whether this is something that you've noticed as well. And
I'm really glad. That's why I'm super happy to be here, because it is a topic I'm super passionate about myself, and particularly because I've both been in the situation where I had the problem first, no proof, and now I can see with my own eyes how we solve this problem for our customers. In my last job before working at Dreamdata, I was at a hardware company selling screen sharing devices. We were selling to schools and businesses. We had been very driven by just paid ads for a long while. But then I think it was from 2007 to 18, we decided to let's actually build a content team now. We hired a writer, we hired a videographer, we hired a designer, and then a manager for this team so they could start putting out a lot of content, because we knew that you can't do 6-figure deals with just like a click on a Facebook ad. And for the longest time, this team just kept producing what I felt was pretty good content. They released articles, did videos. I could see organic search went up in Google. Great. In Ahrefs, I could see that these vanity metrics of the website rankings went up as well. But then, when the CEO comes or the CFO comes and asks, how much have we sold from what, like you have a headcount of 4 people producing content? Why are we doing this? And tell you the truth, I didn't have the answer. And it's painful. What changed the whole thing was really that I met my 2 now co-founders, Lars and Ole, who had been going at this problem from a technical perspective at a company called Trustpilot, where they had the same challenges. When we sell, what was the path to selling? And because we had been using, now I'll get into a little bit of a technical explanation, George, of why can you actually do this now. We had been using segment.com for tracking our website at Airteam. So we have constantly been first-party tracking everything that is on the website. We've been storing that in a data warehouse. We've been tracking every form submit and storing that in the data warehouse. The idea, and which Lars and Ole had back then, and what we still do today, is that now we've automated this whole process of taking tracking data, putting into an account-based timeline, and connecting that to the revenue component, which for B2B companies is the CRM system. So let's say if we take this article we talked about before, it's constantly pulling in a lot of traffic, but people don't convert on the first session, or maybe not the second session where they're hit by some retargeting, or the third or the fourth, but maybe on the 5th visit, they go back to the website, finds an ebook, press download. In this case, the CRM system will say somebody came directly and downloaded this ebook. But what actually happened is that this girl had 5 visits. The first visit was this SEO article, organic Google. This is what we can reveal because we're storing every visit. And then upon the form submit, we get the consent from the user to say, can we take who we now know you are and join together with what you did while you're anonymous? And then you have the one person, and then you take his or her data and put into the accounts timeline as well. And then suddenly you have the money component from the CRM and the path they took, everything we know about the account. And then you can start to say, we've produced these articles, they've yielded this much sales pipeline so far. And now you can say something when they start asking whether is the headcount worth it or not. Does that make sense, George?
It does, but it also opens, a whole series of questions, of follow-up questions, right? I mean, for me, it sounds great, and I wish that many people, listen to or watch this episode, because once again, going back to what I was saying earlier, I know that many people struggle when it comes to these things. My first question, follow up to that, can you do that at scale though? Because I guess that for a business, like an agency, let's say, which is B2B, it's a small numbers game, right? While if we are talking about a SaaS where they get, hundreds of thousands of, in some cases, even millions of visits per month, and like some thousands of leads in some cases, can they do this, like connecting the dots kind of sequence at scale? Is
that is what our product does. It runs completely automatically and it scales to infinity.
Okay, but what are the metrics that or what are the pieces of information that you can get out of something like this? Like these are the past paths. These are the pages that you can attribute the most revenue to. What kind of metrics can you get, and what do you advise people focus on when it comes to content's contribution to pipeline?
Yeah, good questions. So the shortest answer is focus on money. What influence money? The longer explanation is that you can break, you can say, the insights into two buckets. The one bucket is the traditional SEO one. What are the landing pages that are pulling in traffic? And does this traffic become pipeline and revenue later? You'll typically find that all these pages there where you did your keyword research, you found some really big keywords, and you're now ranking 1. They're oftentimes not yielding any revenue because you selected a too wide topic and there's no intention behind that topic. But you might also find gold nuggets of content where there's little traffic, but every time they come through this article, they go to the sales pipeline. And then you can analyze, how is it ranking today? Can we move it up in Google? If it's ranking 7 today, if we move it up to 3 or 2 or 1, it's going to correlate with more money. It can also be an inspiration for what type of content should we be doing. Should we leave behind this like broad keyword and narrow even more down on very geeky stuff towards our industry? Because we have to prove every time we have these articles, it's actually, they end up in the sales pipeline. So that is the one component, like the landing page perspective. Where do we pull them in from? In this case, organic search. And what does it become afterwards? The other perspective, which I think is something unique and something that content marketers never think about, is that we can also tell you which pages did people look at when they bought your product in this B2B journey. So like in a 6 to 12 month journey over 3, 4, 5, 6 people. And we can do that because from the CRM system, we know which accounts you've won. We know which people belong to this account. We know every single URL that they've looked at on your website. So we can start informing you. Actually, when they're making a buying decision, they're checking the About page, your community page, your integrations page, all these articles that you don't do to pull in a lot of traffic, but it's articles you need to read as you kind of validate that this is a company I can trust. So we can kind of flip it around and say, we won the deals. What did they look at instead? And that's typically super insightful because there's a lot of these pages you neglect because it's not your traffic drivers. And that is and for both sakes, it helps you produce more. It helps you spend your time on content that influences revenue. And that is the answer you want to give to the CFO and CEO.
Definitely. Can I ask you though, aren't there any kind of blind spots? Because I don't know if all the like touch points a company has with, let's say, a SaaS company that they are thinking about, purchasing or subscribing to. So, for example, okay, there are things that happen on the website, right? But what if they check a blog post? That's great. That's a first touch point. But then they checked something on LinkedIn, a post that one of like the marketing members did about a podcast they appear to. This is a touch point, but the LinkedIn post is the second one, and I guess the podcast is the third one, right? Yeah. In that case, can you also measure and attribute value to touch points that are, not happening on the website, which are very important though?
Yeah. So the short answer is no. So I think you need to think, we work with things that has a digital reflection. And if it doesn't have a digital reflection, we can't kind of map it into a customer journey. So we will never say that we have the perfect answer for you, but we can help you identify stuff that are like consistently present, either in a positive or a negative sense. To give you a little bit longer answer, the different kind of platforms where you go to market is becoming more and more liberal with their APIs, meaning the access to the data. So we have, for example, we have an official partnership now with LinkedIn, where they expose engagement data on their ads. So we can say that this company engaged with an ad without ever clicking it or without submitting a lead form. So this data will now go into the customer journeys as well. The same thing with the review platforms. They're also now exposing their intent data. So they will tell you at this day, this account visited this category or this profile. And then we can map that in there as well. So more and more data is becoming available to us that we can map in there. But you're right, George. There's definitely things in marketing that makes 100% sense to do, but it's harder to attribute. And I think that's where we need to use experience and gut feeling about what are the things we should be spending our time on. And I think when it comes to content, you're always going to be facing a little bit of this, the tip of the iceberg. The response you see is not equal to all the value that it's creating. I think just what we do is that we help instead of the iceberg just being like the top 5% of what you see, then maybe you see the top 40 or 50% of what's going on. Does that resonate?
Yeah, it does. It makes sense. One thing I would suggest, and I don't know, I mean, you obviously know data better, to kind of alleviate this and troubleshoot it, would be to create dedicated pages, or at least add, I don't know, UTMs to, for example, you have a podcast appearance, you could share with them a specific URL that still leads to your homepage, right?
Yeah.
But has a UTM attached to it, or even in some cases, if it's an important event, like a speaking gig or something,
yeah,
at a conference, you can do a dedicated page, landing page for people to visit, right? And this could potentially give you some insights as to, you know, the journeys and the people who came from that touch point, and so on and so forth. I'm just thinking out loud.
It's 100% correct. There's definitely a lot of things you can do to make the bucket list leaky. So like once your podcast goes live here, I could insist that it holds the UTM of whatever our conversation is, and it's your. So once the traffic arrives to our website, we see that it comes from this podcast. Yes. So there's a lot of tactics you can do to mitigate it, but we should also just recognize that we'll never catch 100%, and that's not the purpose. We're just looking for a direction of what is clearly good or bad ideas.
I agree with you. Now, let me start by saying that in general, I don't believe to the funnel, you know, this concept of the funnel. I think that it helps kind of simplify things and visualize how things happen. But at the same time, I think that it put us all in the wrong mindset, in the sense of, like, the journey is rarely linear, especially nowadays. It's multi-touch. Things happen here, things happen there at the same time. People may not move from one stage to another, and so it's a bit all over the place, right? So in that context, do you think that there is or to put it differently, what do you think the best attribution model is, if there is one that stands out? Or should it be a combination of attribution models to give you the full picture?
Yeah. So firstly, I can confirm I never think about a funnel. Like, who cares? The user doesn't care that you think this is now a top funnel, and then one day later they're asking to buy your product. like forget about the funnel. I think about that we consistently put out high quality content, whether that's top funnel, low funnel, whatever. It just needs to be of supreme quality every single time. And then we need to stay constantly top of mind with these customers. So that means we can't just publish on our blog. We need to publish it on LinkedIn, on a podcast, on a YouTube channel as well. So every time they open their computer, they'll see the dream that is present, and they've just released another piece of quality content. So that is my one perspective on it. Then if we speak about attribution models, if you think about I'm using my hands so those that are listening can't see it, but if you think about a customer journey in B2B, it's it heavily favors the sales team because they are the last mile. They are the ones that signs the contract. It is actually, I've done it myself. It's super hard work. It's definitely a craft and takes a lot of work to get these contracts signed. But it's just not, these companies just doesn't fall down from the sky and then say they're ready to buy. They go through kind of, I think more about it as a customer journey more than a funnel. Something needs to be the first touch that takes them on a path to ending up in that sales meeting. And when you talk about attribution models, then as a marketer, there's two components we actually need to get here. So one is that marketing has the odds against them in terms of getting credit because those touches will be in the beginning of the journey. Now, what we want to be applying the attribution model on is accounts that make it all the way to the sales pipeline or to being won, not just to converting to an ebook. Because if we're, whatever model you select, and if you narrowly just focus on the next email you collect, it might be complete crap and they never move on to the sales pipeline or you win them. So you want to look at the customer journeys of the accounts that goes very far down the customer journey. And then, the attribution model is then, let's call it somewhat of an opinion about what led them to enter the sales pipeline or being won. And I would always use all of the models just, because it's representing the truth in different ways. So, just do the analysis on all of them and then spin up your brain to decide what is probably the right conclusion here, because it is just different ways of looking at the world. My personal favorite, though, is quite often just the first touch model. What is the first touch we see when we win accounts? What are the things where we really, really create demand? Where do we get in front of people who've never heard about us before and then go on this path of ending up in the sales pipeline or being a one customer?
Okay, that makes sense. Are there any mistakes that you see companies make when it comes to attribution?
That's a lot.
That's a rhetoric question, I guess.
Yeah, I think there's definitely one problem is that there's a big knowledge gap in terms of what is possible today versus what people do because they've always been doing it.
Can you give an example of that? What's not possible that people think it's possible and they come to you and they're like, so we can't do that? Let me give you an example of how does the data model work that we have. A user in our data model can have multiple emails. So it can have a private email, a professional email. They can own multiple devices. So they can have a computer, a phone, a tablet. All of this we build as a graph over time. So there's not this cross-device challenge. It doesn't exist anymore if you set up a customer data platform correctly. I'll take it a little bit back. So one thing is the technology component is that it needs to be able to grasp a lot of complexity, multiple emails, multiple devices. It also needs to be a data model that is configured to understand a B2B context. That means that we need to make these individuals part of an account journey, not just behavior of individuals, because it's always going to be the CFO or the procurement department or CEO that signs the contract. But they will never be the first touch on your journeys. So if your world is wired to understand the last touch of somebody who signs a contract, you'll never understand where you create the demand. So typical pitfalls. One, the CRM we touched upon in the beginning, that captures the last session in which the conversion happened. That's not where the customer journey comes from. It's not where the demand comes from. And in most CRM companies, SaaS companies in particular, there's a battle for this first touch field, which is completely misunderstood because the first touch field has not rarely any idea about where did the customer come from. And then there's two more flaws, Google Analytics and ad platforms. None of them have any clue about pipeline or revenue in B2B companies. They can't handle the complexity of B2B context.
if you think about buying a click from Google, great, somebody arrived to your website. But the deal happens 12 months later. It passes through 2 or 3 people. There's 40 sessions or something like that. So these devices that people are relying on, where they think they can go pick up the truth, is 9 out of 10 times misleading them.
I get it. It makes sense. One thing that I find particularly interesting, and you kind of touched on a bit earlier, is the fact that not only we can kind of track the path that someone, took from the beginning until they are close to one, but we can also see what happens inside the company, right? And I don't know if that's connected to the book, the book you recently published, the second edition of Connecting the Dots. And I guess my question is, what should companies with long cycles, sales cycles, and different people involved in the process, right, should do from an attribution standpoint? And is like the current technology that we have today, can the technology help in that direction? I mean, if I think of us as an agency, right, most likely we will be approached by the content marketing director or the SEO director or someone in that position, right? But chances are they will get, they will ask the buy-in from their CMO. The CMO will have a chat with the CFO, and so on and so forth. So can you track all these different touch points from different people inside the company, especially when the sales cycle is long?
So if there's digital reflections of this, and then yes, if it's conversations that happens across lunch inside of the customer's company, then no. We need to have kind of like you need to catch this data somehow. If I go to your question, I think the thing about data is that the best time to collect it was 20 years ago. And the second best is that you start today by aggregating the data, because when you want to do your analysis, you don't want to do it based on what we know today. We want to do it based on what we've experienced the last 6 to 12 months. And what the one component that people very often don't have is their tracking data, meaning that what takes place on their website, because they're relying on Google Analytics, and then Google owns their data, and they can't like take it out and model it as they want. So anybody that is listening, I would advise to find a first-party web tracking tool and start storing all their tracking data in a data warehouse, so that when they feel the need to start doing analysis like this, then they actually have the history available and don't have to start building from scratch. That can be, segment.com. It can be Dreamdata. There's many other suppliers out there. But the tracking data is typically the magic component that people miss, because at least in SaaS companies, most people have a CRM system nowadays. But the information about what actually took place on the website is very often missing, and then they have to start tracking from scratch.
That's right. And I mean, I see many companies have all these different tools here and there, but I have yet to see a unified system and a company having, as much clarity as possible. I'm not saying that you will ever get to 100%, right? You can't get there. But as much clarity as possible about what's really going on, not what's going on in HubSpot, what's going on in Gong, what's going on in, whatever tools that all the different teams may be using, but what's really going on, right? With Clearbit, or like, can you bring all these things together and have as much clear idea about what's going on and what drives revenue as you possibly can? That's what companies need, I guess.
Yeah, that's what we do at Dreamdata.
I'm botting. I don't know, but
I mean, it is. Of course, you still have to apply gut feeling and common sense and do your own analysis. But we can at least help bring forward the data that you already sit upon, but is scattered across all these different silos today.
I get it. Can I ask you something? What is your advice to people in content marketing who want to invest in activities with hard to prove ROI as part of the journey? For example, podcast. I want to get my CEO or CMO behind the mic to do like 12 interviews in the next year or so. But I know that I can't. It's very difficult. Not that I can't. There are some solutions to kind of, get there. But it's difficult to prove that this can have a very positive impact to our bottom line. Do you have anything to share with these people?
Yeah, I think there's two things to do. One thing is to, you need to start with the, it's almost like the whole company's go-to-market strategy. Who are we trying to sell to? How do these people look like? And what is the right message to tell to these people? If we can consistently place the right message to the right people, that's what we want to do, because then we will get more customers. And then, it's a distribution question. SEO can be one distribution path. Posting on LinkedIn is another. Running podcasts is a third. Doing webinars is the fourth. So what I'm getting at is like, it's firstly, you need to think about how do we get into the ears and into the eyes of the right people with the right message. Once you've done that, then there's disciplines that yields itself to easier analysis, like people coming to a website, visiting the website, and then see what's going on. But there are also other things, as you say, podcast, posting on LinkedIn, mentions in Slack channel, etc., that is not easy to quantify. But here you need to get your fingers ready to do the qualitative proof, which is take screenshots. Every time you see every time you see a mention of your company or your marketing activities anywhere on the internet, just keep a folder where you take screenshots. And I can guarantee you, if you show up at the next monthly meeting or quarterly meeting with 100 screenshots of people mentioning your marketing activities, which you can't measure quantitatively, but you can show 100 people saying, this is fucking awesome content, then there'll be no questions asked. Or if they ask questions, they should be probably figure out whether they should actually be in the meeting or not, because this is a massive proof that you're getting in front of the right people with the right message. So screenshots for me is the way forward. The second thing you can do is
I agree sorry about that, but I agree about screenshots, and I can attest to that. We also do that, and they help because we had the person who runs content marketing for our own brand shares screenshots, from one time to another, and just the other day, he shared quite a few screenshots of people mentioning the podcast and things that we've done in the basis of content. And that's something I didn't know. Really? Are people suggesting our podcast? And they are I didn't expect. I know the podcast is growing, but I didn't expect. So this can definitely help, even from a morale boost standpoint. I'm sorry, you can continue with the second point.
No, I agree that I always try to get my teammates to share successes, because it helps create momentum. Oh fuck, somebody's actually listening, they like it, so let's share this success so we become motivated to do more. Now, the last two things is that you can do these kind of where did you hear about us exercises as well. So on your forms on the website, you can ask people, where did you hear about us? Sometimes people will mention, hey, it was this particular piece of content, and you can get your salespeople to ask the same question, and then on the sales call ask them, where did you hear about us? If you're using a call intelligence listening tool, then that will be written down in that. But otherwise, the salespeople just need to take these anecdotes and feedback to the company. Hey, I was on this call with this great ICP. He mentioned that he was listening to our podcast. And that is then the verbal proof of the marketing working.
I get it. Do you know where things kind of break, quote unquote, for us though? when we get people, when we get on calls with people, and how did you hear about us? Like, where did you find us, right? I know that when they say that, oh, we were just doing a simple Google search and, you know, your website came up somewhere in the results. And when they say that, I know, okay, we are not going to work together, right? When they come to us and they are like, oh yeah, I watched your webinar. I heard about you from this community because someone mentioned something about you. Then I connected with you on LinkedIn, and then I decided, you know, to book a call. I'm like, okay, we are very close, you know, because these people, we are already positioned in their minds as like a company that knows their stuff, right? They can somehow trust us at this point.
But I follow you on LinkedIn as well. And some of the cases I'm kind of, I want this growth. And then if I were to come to you, then I already seen all the proof that you do good work. So the conversation changes very much.
Yeah, for sure. And you are able to position yourself pretty much as you want to position yourself nowadays. My second to last question would be, what do you think the future of attribution is for B2B companies and specifically for SaaS companies? You mentioned something about, you know, like LinkedIn and other platforms being a bit more open when it comes to their data, which is definitely a positive change, especially for companies. I don't know about like individuals and users, but for companies. Anything else that you think is part of the future of this whole attribution thing?
Like two things. I think in general, I think there's a rise in first-party data. And first-party data meaning that companies start to become aware that they need to own their own data. Whereas like 5-10 years ago, we were okay with relying at third-party vendors like, you know, Google Analytics, Facebook ads, etc. They just they hold all our important go-to-market data. That's not okay anymore. And, you know, because of GDPR, it's becoming less and less allowed to share data across systems without permission of users. So you need to be the captain of your own permissions, and you need to collect this data and store it so you can do your own analysis. I think this trend is something we see particularly in SaaS companies that are more and more aware that they need to mature when it comes to data. The second thing, which is what we're preaching all the time, which I hope people will start to get, is that B2C and B2B customer journeys are very, very different. So you can't use the same tools to understand these journeys. And that is kind of I think that's the essential thing that people don't understand. CRM systems is not able to like hold your customer journeys. You need to look at it through other lenses.
Yeah, it's just there for a specific purpose, which is to kind of store specific bits of information, right? Data about your prospects, your customers, and so on and so forth. So from our discussion today, it's pretty obvious that people should connect that and enrich that and understand that better through solutions like Dreamdata, right? And by the way, this is not a sales pitch, right? I'm just impressed by everything that you said so far. And I really think that attribution is a problem, but there are solutions to fix that problem up to a certain extent, of course, right? That was great. Last question I have for you, Steffen. Where can people find out more about you and get in touch?
Yeah, that is, for me, that is LinkedIn. I probably spend too much time there, but people are welcome to connect and ask questions. And as I said, like if people want to give it a try, we actually have a quite nice free product at Dreamdata as well that they can go check out. Is it freemium or what? Yeah, so you can say, we have two things. We have a free product, which is basically just web tracking, a Google Analytics for B2B companies, where we track all the data and store it. And we also allow you to connect all your ad platforms and like daily see how much you spend on these different campaigns. The other thing is our paid product, where we take the tracking data and web tracking data and connect that to pipeline and revenue. So the free product helps you collect the web web data. And the paid product helps you connect your kind of whole go-to-market ecosystem and then understand how the full customer journey evolves into pipeline and revenue.
The thing though is that someone can start from the free product, and they should start because you need to start tracking things, right? And then you have a history, you have historic data. You can subscribe to a paid account. You can do that because you have data. The point I'm trying to make here, without prompting anyone to buy or anything like that, is, I don't know, since there is a free option available, why shouldn't someone connect it? And later on, they are ready to move forward with a paid plan. They have historic data that they can use, right?
Exactly.
I don't know, do I get this correctly?
Well, completely.
Yeah. Okay. That was all very insightful. And I would like to thank you very much for doing this. I really appreciate it, knowing how limited your time is. Thank you very much, and looking forward to follow-up discussions like this.
Thank you, Josh.
Before you go, I'd like to give a quick shout out to the sponsor for this episode, Ahrefs. Ahrefs provides you with an all-in-one SEO toolset that does everything from rank tracking to backlink analysis, keyword research, and technical audits. The best part, you can now use Ahrefs Webmaster Tools for free to identify and prioritize optimization opportunities for your website, see all the keywords that your web pages are ranking for, take a close look at the websites that link back to and refer you in their content, and analyze other websites to find out what drives their rankings. Visit ahrefs.com/AWT and sign up for free.